Hello everyone. This is a level tutorial how to do a fast 3D Fast64 level. Um, First things first, change this to this. Make sure it's on F3D EX2, not on F3D. Because F3D you have a hard triangle limit of around 20,000 triangles is the hard limit for F3D. Because you try to go past that, the game will crash. It will just straight up crash. So do not do this. Use this. Just use one of the F3D EX2s. Use one of those. Just make sure you have this on. Then there have been some major changes to this. Like there's a Mario 64 tab, a Ocarina of Time tab. There's been lots of additional features added to Fast 3D. Like for example, you can now add a water box. Just simple as push this button, boom, you got a water box. And you can increase it, that's how big the water box will be. This is really nice to, well, it's really nice to have. Yeah, you can either have intoxicades or water. But that's how you add water to your levels now, much easier and simpler. Keeps the texture within the size of what you need it to be. Okay, so there are some caveats with using Fast 3D that you need to watch out for. Make sure if you're gonna have a star on your level, make sure it's in Big Boo's Haunt. Make sure it's in one of the normal levels. Do not do Castle Ground, Courtyard, or the Castle Inside. Do not do in those hub worlds because the game will crash because it doesn't have information for stars for those areas or for those levels for those levels. It doesn't have information for stars for them. So do not put stars in these levels. These are, well, hub levels. They should be treated as such, not as actual levels, because that's how your game crashes if you try to use these. So just use these for like a big open world, or just make it a hub world basically. Just keep these as hub worlds because that's what they're useful for. So I basically have vertex coloring on. It's pretty nice if you want to change the color of textures and that. Very nice. I really do like this UV mapping, UVW and then box. Look at that. Boom. Looking stylish. Boom, box. See, it's just nice, simple, easy textures. They're simple, they work, it all lines up. You don't have to really mess with it unless if you're starting to add slopes and it gets a bit funky, but other than that, it's still pretty good. It works. It does its job. Not clean, not all the time though. It does get a bit messy, like right here there's a seam. Clearly see the seam right here. It's like not working correctly because it's like not all even. There's some caveats to it, but it works for the most part. Just need to make sure that it's a simple texture, not something like this. If it's something like that, then it becomes a bit messy. Simplified UI is good for simplifying how this all works. I will say if you want to keep CI textures or color index, you want to make sure to keep the texture memory usage under 4 kilobytes, which is like 32 by 32 is the maximum size you can go. So try and keep it within that size limitation. 32 by 32 is basically the biggest I think you can go. I mean, you can go like 64 by 32 or 32 by 64. I think it's 32 wide by 64 tall. is how big you can have it and stay within this texture memory limitation. If you try and go over that and try and export it without like doing this right here where it says save textures as PNGs, break CI textures. This is if your texture is bigger than this size. If you want a higher quality looking texture, then you kind of need to select this, but it will break it. It will break textures. It will break the color index, which is basically grayscale. It will break that completely. Now I haven't tried it, but I'm taking its word. See right here, ignore texture restrictions. This basically, oh, and you also have you cannot go over basically 1,000 by 1,000. You cannot go over that size, and it must be in PNG format and must be RGBA 32. So this is good for if you want larger textures, but it does break some of the compatibility. It does break some of the textures. So you need to be careful if you want to have it be compatible. If you want it to fit within the texture memory, then keep it within 32 by 32 or 32 by 64. Because that is how it keeps that. Because that's how it works. So yeah, just be careful with how you how you work with it with textures, because textures are messy and they break very easily. But just be careful and you should be fine. Box. See how much nicer that looks instead of just one giant looking texture. See, this is how it's supposed to look. Nope, I didn't do it. I didn't color that all right. There, now that should. Yeah, see, there's a little bit of fall off on it. It's not. Let's lower this. There's a little bit of a seam, but that's not noticeable if you have 3-point on. It's not noticeable because that seam gets hidden. It's not noticeable in game. I think it's just probably a Blender thing, or it could be a weird Mario 64 texture quirk, but it works as it should. Also, might want to be careful with like doing something like this, because your textures will stretch and you kind of have to redo it, and it gets a bit messy. Okay, so like going at like this curve, it looks fine, but also you might want to go to object and make sure to recenter if you do go in edit mode and start moving it, because it will get a bit funky. Look at that. Look how cool that looks. I'm just gonna keep it like this though. But yeah, just boom, boom. It's not perfect, but it's whatever, you know. A few Goombas or whatever. Objects are very easy to add. Just go to object, boom. Make sure to get the correct model. I misspelled piranha. I don't really care though. So about this, let's get. Okay, so it's Y. Y is basically facing this. Is basically facing this direction. It's facing. It's so Y. It's basically facing forward. Is Y is basically the Y is opposite. So the Y is facing over here. So the piranha plant will be facing over here. It will be facing toward. It will be facing towards this area right here. So if I were to look at it like this, it will be facing. This is basically the piranha plant's front. And hitboxes are a bit weird because it's basically needs to be like the box needs to be halfway in order for it to basically be on the ground. It's not like this, because if we do it like this, let me just scoot this one over and lower this to the ground. Probably not completely flush, but that's okay. Scooch this over here. Okay. Okay, so we got a piranha plant basically that's going to be floating and one that should be on the ground. So go to export. Open up your decomp. I use AOL. It's the most up-to-date nightly version of SM64 EX. Because EX is basically dead at this point, unless it gets updates in the future.
Mario!
Which I highly doubt.
Hello!
Yes, hi Mario. I can hear you. Thank you. You don't need to keep yelling in my ear.
Okie dokie! Let's go!
Okay, so see what I mean? See, that box is basically spacing to go in the middle of the dot is basically ground, because that is not ground. That is floating. Now that is ground. So this piranha is on the ground. So basically every object you need to go basically halfway in the box in order for it to basically go on the ground. That is doing some funky things. It's like going in front of things. This should not be happening. Not in front of Mario though. Okay. I have some things I need to sort on that. That is not correct whatsoever. But I will worry about that later. But that's basically how things should work. But yeah, this is this should not. So the piranha plant. So make sure to put your things halfway, or they will be floating. That's how the piranha plant should be. So make sure it's about halfway in order for things to be on the ground. Because that just looks very weird. Yeah, but that is... Oh no, I screwed it up. Oh no, I fell. See, I don't have the death barrier set up properly, so it won't actually kill me.
Here we go!
So yeah, that's basically how you do a level. Also, I didn't set the exit warp right. It should be a lot lower. It should be lower. And they don't give out coins because I already collected them. And that's what happens when you actually have the same area set for stars and that. Is they don't work right. And that's it. Goodbye.